everyone. My name is William Eggers. I'm a sports performance intern coach here at Marquette University for the summer semester 2016. And this is my presentation on a boxing annual training plan I did for 2016. So let's get started. So here's an overview of what I'm going to be talking about. First, I'm going to give a little bit about the sport overview, as professional boxing does vary from other organizations and other kinds. I'm going to do a little needs analysis of what it takes to build a boxer. I'm going to do a needs analysis about injury risk and very common injuries and what we can do to deal with those. I have some snapshots from my off-season, preseason, in-season, and post-fight that I'm just going to be briefly going over each of those. And then I will present a year in review as we look at my annual plan from the whole. So, first thing, boxing overview. In professional boxing, it's 12 rounds, 3 minutes each round. If a knockout or a disqualification does not occur before the end of 12 rounds, then judges will make a decision. So how this works is based on a 10-point system. So the winner is rewarded 10 points unless there are any subtractions given by the referee. So say if somebody hits somebody with an open palm and he gets poked in the eye, then the winner, even though he may win the fight 10-9, can have his score reduced to 9-9. And then at the end of the 12 rounds, all the scores from all the judges are added up, and if every judge has one fighter winning, that's called a unanimous decision. If it's two judges pick one fighter, one picks the other, that's known as a split decision. And then again, referees can deduct points for, you see people headbutt sometimes, you see people do some weird things, claw. So keep those in mind. So building a boxer. These are the main things that I think are important to consider. First off, you need to consider what weight class that fighter's in, what kind of fighting style they're going to perform with. Like my first slide, we had Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, both very quick fighters. Floyd being one who's more of a counter striker, whereas Pacquiao is a high volume striker. But in other cases, you have like Roy Jones Jr., who is maybe a little bit bigger of a fighter and is going to go for the one-hit knockout, similar to Muhammad Ali or other fighters like that. So when we're training them, we have to keep those things in mind. Some may require a little bit more of a strength base, whereas others may simply focus on moving fast and tiring out their opponent. So muscle endurance is key. Just conditioning throughout, anaerobic conditioning, aerobic conditioning. They just have to be fit. You're in there for a very long period of time. If you last, 12 rounds at 3 minutes, 36 minutes of all-out fighting, you can get very tired, muscle and fatigue pretty quickly. We have to prepare the body to absorb forces. So we need to make sure that they can handle getting hit. They can handle not just delivering punches, but also being able to absorb energy and take the forces that are coming at them. Main things, when we're striking, we need powerful hips, we need powerful core, we're going to be rotating a lot, and the good strikers are the ones who are producing most of their power from the legs. And then finally, with my boxer, I chose to take more of a Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao approach. They have to be quick. We have to be light on our feet. We have to be able to do that for the entire fight. We have to be able to counter-strike and dodge punches. So, these analysis, injury risk. What are the main injuries in boxing? Concussions are the big ones. You're in there, you're going to hit in the face, you don't have headgear in professional boxing, so strengthening the neck is going to be really key in making sure our boxers are healthy and developing that chin. So we don't take one punch and immediately we're lightheaded, immediately we're dizzy, and we go down. Tendinitis in the elbows. So with a lot of boxers, just the constant wear and tear of throwing so many punches, they get tendinitis in their elbows, as well as they have a lot of wrist injuries. I think it's called like boxer's knuckle, where the knuckles get very inflamed and it's very painful and hard to punch at that point. Big thing we can do for that is just strengthening the forearms and wrists and just other accessory muscles and areas on the arm. And then finally, dislocated shoulders. In boxing, it's going to be very fast-paced. Sometimes you're not gonna know what your opponent's going to do next. A lot of times you get thrown out of position very easily. So if I throw like a really hard punch, my opponent ducks it and then comes back up, whipping my arm backwards, it's going to jerk it out of place very quickly, and it can lead to dislocation of the shoulder, and we need to prepare for that. So things I do for that is we're going to be doing some band work and just a lot of overhead strength work. I think that's really good for developing mobility and developing stability in the shoulder and thoracic area. So, alright, so let's get started. So this is my off season. Pretty simple, just getting the boxer stronger. I do have, the volume is pretty moderate at this point. We're not trying to wear him out too early in the year, as this is basically, he's not fighting for 6 months from now, 4 months from 5 months from now. So we're not going to focus too much on general fitness or necessarily explosiveness. We're going to just do a lot of basic strength work. I'm a big fan of kind of doing cluster type sets, so we hit both heavy and moderate weights. I think it's just a good overall way to train a fighter and hit all the different intensities, getting your body used to different kinds of weight loads and intensities. So, this is a big thing that I just personally believe in, but during the off season especially, we're working mobility a lot, so we have a mobility mode every day that my fighter is going to engage in. So, next, we're moving to the preseason. So with the preseason, this is going to be his hardest lifting type workouts. In terms of fighting, boxers don't lift too much. So for this and the off season, I'm only doing 3 days a week. This is just day one of a 5-week progression here. So we'll just take a look at this. But overall, I'm going for explosiveness at this point. We're really going to test his nervous system, try to increase his base going into competition season so we can take on a really high practice load when he starts to get into just live fighting and is tested that way. So again, we have overhead squats. I'm taking advantage of tsunami bar for overhead squats as well as with bench press. So he'll do that. He'll do the tsunami bar bench press 3 times a week actually. That's kind of my innovative idea with dealing with the absorbing forces as well as delivering forces that a boxer needs to be capable of handling. So when you guys watch fighters fight and you get like a close-up of like a still image, somebody's getting punched in the face or somebody's delivering a punch, what do you see in the arm or the face? Like what's usually like a characteristic going on that makes it kind of cool?
Punching or the receiving of the punch?
Both. Just with the contact of 2 forces in a boxing match. What's interesting about it?
I see force wave.
Force wave, yeah, there you go. So you get like that absorption as well as the delivering. There's just a lot of force being absorbed in that. And I think the tsunami bar does a good job at somewhat simulating that kind of motion. So you get, at the same time, you're trying to push the weight away, but with the oscillation of the bar, you're getting forces coming back at you very rapidly. So I think that's a kind of interesting way to deal with it. I'm not in the preseason. I'm going to do a little bit higher volume. Again, going back to the cluster sets, I wanted to experience different loads of weight. And then I also include this med ball circuit, which I'll talk about in a second. It's kind of my way of dealing with making him explosive without adding a lot of mass. Again, we're testing just the nervous system, really forcing his body to move quickly, but with not too much breaking down of the muscle, as during training camp, he's going to be fighting a lot, and we don't want to be necessarily, we don't want him to have sore muscles or, too worn down, too much hypertrophy in that sense. Also, we have some landmines for good hip rotation, and just kind of getting the legs involved in the pressing motion involved in punching and other striking. And then finally, like I talked about earlier, neck strengthening is really important. So we have the neck strengthening circuit, which I will also be talking about in this next slide. So here's the neck strengthening circuit. Pretty simple. I kind of just looked this up online, looked at what Floyd Mayweather is doing. He has a contraption, he sticks around his head, adds some weight, and he has some trainers either push his head down a little bit as he resists, or he'll just sit off of a bench and just hold it, or he'll do like head nods, side to side, up and down, similar to what I have here. very simple, but very necessary to developing a healthy boxer. And here's my med ball plan. So this is going to be a little bit of a testing mechanism during preseason. So he'll do a med ball shot throw one day, a backward toss one day, another day, and med ball overhead kneeling throw a third day. This is something that you see in like the NFL combine. They'll like stay on their knees. They'll try to chuck the med ball as far as they can. Good to just testing general explosiveness, and throughout the preseason when he is going to be taking on the highest loads, I can see how it's affecting him and how if I need to add more, or basically how the change affecting him. And then 3 different exercises in a little med ball circuit here, all just very explosive in nature, a lot of rotation, a lot of just forward movement of lighter weight, lighter intensity compared to the heavier weight he's going to be lifting with barbells and things like that. All right, and then, so now we go in season. With this, he's only lifting 2 days a week because I figure with how boxers fight, during their training camp, they're going to be doing a lot of sparring, a lot of high intensity, circuit training with like just punching things. And I don't think there's as much of a demand for the weight you're working, because what they're doing in the boxing gym is so similar and so explosive in nature. We're just going to keep things pretty simple, a lot shorter than what I had before. Still not very high, but I just want to kind of maximize the power output that he's delivering. And then also I put in the Swiss barbell bench because I think that's more similar to a motion a boxer has of punching inside instead of a wide grip like this. Because how are we punching? We're punching like this. Our hands are inside. So I think that's a lot more specific and applicable to the sport. And then again, we have our neck strength circuit, some landmines, and then some single leg things. I also added on speed skaters with the hang stance because I figured you need some like lateral stability as well as quickness and explosiveness. So I think that's going to help him out very well. All right, and then this is after his fight. He's going to take a couple weeks to recover. Again, this is all just very simple stuff, very similar to off-season. Some mobility work, and again, just lunges, regular bench press, front squat, just basic strength things. Keeping the muscles active and keeping his fitness up a little bit. I also should add, in a lot of my workouts, our warm-up consists of doing a lot of single leg and double leg agility training. So I'm going to take advantage of the agility ladder, as well as, you guys know, like the 4 square drills. So you're like jumping, like doing X's in the squares, or like back and forth. Taking a lot of advantage of that to kind of just wake up the nervous system before lifts and keep it moving quick. And then finally, year recap. So the way I broke this up is he's going to have 2 fights during the year. So training camp 1, training camp 2. The lifts are going to be basically pretty similar. I might change up the intensity a little bit, volume, depending on how the first camp went. Obviously, we might give him more rest during the second one, as that's his bigger fight. And we have our transition periods for several weeks in between, and then our very long, general and specific off-season prep work for 16 weeks, 4 months. So that's my presentation on boxing. Here's my contact information. If you guys have any questions.
If you have any questions, just introduce yourself first and then pose your question.
My name is Eric Stark. I'm also a summer intern here, sports performance intern coach. And my question for you, Will, is I noticed for your lower body exercises for your athlete, there was a lot of overhead squats and lateral lunges. Did you do any other type of lower body exercises? Or did you think that was important? Why not?
Personally, I didn't think there was a huge need to do a lot of back squats or front squats. I just think they're too slow of movements for the athlete. I did consider putting in some jump squats, but I felt like doing hang cleans and doing some more overhead work while still, you're still overhead squats, still working the legs, add some hang snatches in season. I think those explosive type movements where he's still using his legs, but mainly his hips and working on that extension and creating power through the lower body is going to be a lot more important than just doing a more stationary movement like a back squat.
Daniel Cant Hall, assistant S&C coach. Kind of to go off that question, Okay, so you're talking about going overhead stuff. Do you worry about mobility restrictions, especially since you talked about the injuries of shoulder dislocations, shoulder issues in general? Do you worry about going overhead with your boxer?
I do. That's why during the off season, we're going to be doing range of motion workouts every day. I just think it's necessary. We can't avoid doing those movements just because those are what we think are going to cause injury. I think strengthening that and making sure he's prepared so that in a fight, if he's experienced those kind of loads and those kind of positions, then he's going to be fine. So, yes.
Hi, William. I'm Emily Jacobson, Assistant Director of Sports Performance here at Marquette. Do you have any knowledge or understanding of differences in weight classes for boxing, needs to weigh in, when to weigh in, and how training would then differ around those time periods?
Well, leading up to a fight, I mean, that was what was hard about developing the plan, is I don't want him to be putting on a lot of weight during the training because he still needs to make that weight. I want to keep him relatively lean.
So you're saying that you want the fighter to be right at their fighting weight for a majority of the year?
I do. Around it, I'm not going to say at it because I know they cut leading up to it a little bit. And
How much
they're
weight
gonna-
do you think they can cut? Do you know?
It really depends on the fighter. I've heard of fighters who cut like 30 pounds for a fight, and other ones who are like I know heavyweights are a little more minimal. I will say I know Floyd Mayweather. He's a smaller guy in general. He's pretty light. I don't think he cuts very much for his fights at all. He's so accomplished at this point. He has the process pretty down. Again, leading up to the fight, I did add in some deload weeks in season where we're doing very minimal stuff because I know the neurological and physiological demand of having to cut, if he had to a lot, was going to be very intense, and I didn't want him expending that in the weight room. So it'd be a lot of just skill-based